Hello, everybody. It's going to take a bit for people to come on, but it's going to be three topics, that I'm going to talk about here. First being the conclusion of the UK Compact Sustainable Goals and what came of that with a lot of multinationals. Finished all that today here this afternoon. Second thing we're going to get into is what I'm doing tomorrow. I'm in New York, and I'm in one of really good university group of legal experts I'm looking to recruit for my agenda. And last thing, we're going to talk about ICC, International Criminal Court, the letter, the case that I would like to see going forward. We're going to explain all that for Canada and the Canadians I brought forward with in this letter. We're going to go into that in detail. And then we're going to look at also Germany's doing another ICC on Corona. We're not going there, and I'm going to explain to you all why I don't want to incorporate any of that. We're going to get into it in really good detail. And what's going on with the Canadian Constitutionalist Party will be the final end off of all of it that ties it all in together. So now I see people are logging on. First things first here. So I finished the UK UN Compact Sustainability. It only got better, to be honest. Today's presentations, as I went through it got better and better. Some key insights and takeaways. It was largely led by all major corporations, organizations, and large-scale foundation societies. There were no small businesses, at least not up front and center. Absolutely all panels, every single one we went through were all large-scale multinationals. I could go through a slew of companies that you would all recognize, you've all dealt with, and they're absolutely from the UK. Not all bad people, and it was really funny. Americans came in. It was funny at the very last debate, and they wanted to debate legislating human rights in business activities, setting minimum standards. And that would be great if UK did that. I voted for it. I listened to the debate. I gave everybody my little point on it. They all took it well, and I think, for some of these large-scale companies, I'm not going to go into who's who. I gave you the negative of the ones as I went through this, but honestly, today was a lot better than yesterday, except for, of course, Lush and what I said about Lush. That's true. But everybody else since then was terrific. Nestle was interesting. I could go through a whole bunch. They're all pretty good, and they had a little debate at the end, and they made sure to say, hey, it's not our company that's going this road. We're just doing a debate because we needed 3-on-3. And it didn't really matter anyway, because what I really loved about it was the fact that unless the entire world embraces human rights, and that means those 5 countries, I made sure to get that out, saying, look, it's got to be UK, USA, China, Russia, and France. If you don't have all those 5, or if it's one that refuses to even look at it and can't even follow the UN binding charter that they've all agreed to, it's bound into law. The only semi-codified constitution of the world. And because it's a charter, it's not absolute, but there's rules of governance there, and even for those 5 countries and what they accept. And then they ratified that. They got these miraculous powers that they've enjoyed, really, especially when we get into value and supply chains, how things are delivered around the world, who gets to utilize those, who has to, go through these particular countries. The reality is they've enjoyed that for, coming on 70 years in not so distant future here. They've enjoyed that. So if you've enjoyed all that and you've had all this privilege of that, and it's made a lot of these countries monumentous in economic growth, you're going to have to buck up here. And I think that's what I left the UK with. There were government people there too. There was a baroness. There was a knighted sir there. There's all kinds of UK government positions that were represented there, ambassadors as well too. So it was fun to participate, as I always do. Up at 4 in the morning I participated like I did yesterday all the way through. I'm tired, but I always prove to these people, regardless of their situation in class, you know what, this guy does his homework, and I stay the course no matter what people like or what I say or who I piss off. I know I pissed off a whole pile of UK multinationals, but at the end of the day, there was a number that stuck it through. They're there, they enjoyed it, we all, I think, had fun, and I called out what I figured were the ones that needed to be called out, that you don't have a firm grasp on the world. You definitely don't politically, you don't have it culturally, and it's a leftover of the UK that's wrong in the world today. And especially when it goes against a couple of those other UNSC members, like, the EU wasn't made out of nothing. It was formulated from other UNSC members. USA being the oldest version of a type of EU, and not only oldest, but probably the best run. Let's face it. They got the world dollar. They have world dominance. They got a great hand for all of the people of America into all the major financial systems in the world. And that's the people of the United States. That's the truth, you guys. There's no, ifs, ands, or buts about it. Their pensions, their 401k, their union pensions, their public sector pensions, that's all well funded through almost every country in the world, and the strength of the American dollar and the control of the financial situation. I mean, if you're going to pick a democratic country, I think USA should lead that. I'm glad the world is what it is because of the USA, to be honest. And, people can argue, but, they have their problems. I'm not saying they don't. They're very old, and there's things that have developed in the world that constitutionally require amendments. My opinion, not my country. I can't force my will. I can just talk about it, and I'll get out to New York tomorrow, and I will talk about that, and I will get the message out. But I left everyone that participated there, even the multinationals, I let them know who I was, what I'm doing here in Canada, where I'm going with the CCP, Canadian Constitutionalist Party. I explained the big C against the little c that the UK incorporates. They don't have any big C at all. It's all parliamentary, and it's all acts of legislation. They don't have a codified constitution, none whatsoever. 0 regions, that's the United Kingdom. And, I don't know if a lot of people realize that. They're democratic in a way. I don't know if I like their system absolutely, as I really experienced it with a lot of the private sector multinationals. Really didn't understand, but a lot of private sector multinationals were very interested. And you know what? I got to talk a little bit about America in the end, and for the second time bring up America first as it really is. They all didn't like media either, which was funny. But the big multinationals have a problem with social media. But you know what? You deserve the handle you got, because how come I do so well on social media? Media will crucify me, that mainstream media, but how come I do so well on the social media? I don't grow large, but I stay steady at it, and the people I get are a real loyal base, all of you. And, the big multinationals don't have that, and they wonder why, social media is bad, we got to regulate it. They're all worried, but the reality is, like Lush, look at the narrative you pump out. If you tried pumping that out publicly the way you did in that little forum with little old me and others, can you imagine what the outcry from Canadians would have been? The way she was talking, it would have been taken very, very badly just in the country of Canada. Never mind the United States of America or Russia. She would have got a big up yours, especially the way Americans are. It would have been go stick it where the sun don't shine, and, I made a point. She was a little flustered, angry about it. We didn't see her again, but that's the way it goes. In the end, it went really well. At least a new narrative, a new type of thinking went out for maybe 30 big multinationals from the UK. Will it be well received? Did they all get back to me? No, only 3 did. And that's okay. That's okay. I don't mind. I'm going to write something specifically for the UK when the opportunity comes up. There's always things to submit, and maybe I'll get another chance to publish something specifically for the UK on their system versus a lot of the democratic world. And maybe I'll even write further about the UK and absolutely the rest of the colonial world, and why not everything the UK, thinks is so great and so advanced is actually anti-worldly, really, and it's really felt offensive. Anyone who listens to that, it's very offensive. I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to turn around and say, geez, you're very offensive, you have a superiority complex. Is a large majority of them white? Yeah, so then they get this privileged white person thing, but it's not necessarily a race thing, because there were African United Kingdom solely, like where they were from Africa, immigrated to United Kingdom or Great Britain at the time period, the family, and they were even cemented in a coat of arms, a deal through the royal family of the day. So they're privileged now too, and they talk the same way. I heard it from one African United Kingdom, person, and I'm not going to say who that is, because, it's not really relevant. It's just the fact that there's an example of where you're just as bad and you're of color, but the way you narrate, you don't know no better, but it's very offensive. And if you were white, they would say you're racist, but uninclusive, is that the word? Like that is the word, I guess. But people misconstrue it to racism, but it's really just a design of the country and that system, and it goes through people from the UK. I hate to say it. It's reality. It's still very much alive today, as I saw through this presentation. Will we open minds? I hope so. Now to get into the second part of this, everybody. So I went through that first bit. I hope that the next one is ICC Canada versus Germany. Hope it is. I'm probably missing one. If I am, I'll watch comments and I'll see if I missed it after I'm done. So ICC and my letter, we're going to break that down. I've had negativity with some people. I've had others. After tomorrow, I'm putting all that together. You're all going to see it, plus the list of every name, and anyone at that point who wants to remove, go ahead. I'm actually still getting emails and people want to jump on board. I just really want to limit to the 1,000, and that's where I'm going to leave it. I should have said to everybody, give me your address and all that. Not that I would give that in unless we had a legal team taking that, the prosecution from the ICC, which is Con. If he was going to take it, absolutely, then I'm sure that may come forward. I would say probably a fifth of you provided that anyway. A lot of you did, but not a whole bunch, right? So regardless, that's why I'm glad I did 1,000, just to see when we go through the process and what's required, because who knows, right? I'm not saying they're going to require that, but they might, I don't know. And if a case goes, they might require that down the road. I don't know. But what I'm doing here and what I want everybody to understand, I know a lot of the loyal followers know, but a lot of people coming on board don't really know what's going on. And then there's the criticisms, and I'm just going to be very frank and clear here. The ICC letter that I'm putting forward, I provided a statement, and then I provided backup exhibits. From all my loyal followers have already seen this. I didn't send it to ICC. I took a very different approach. For all my loyal followers, Canadians, if you don't know, this is the actual what I did. I went to the UNSC, United Nations Security Council, the 5 permanent members. Because first things first, to get ICC can look at something, but if the 5 members, any one of them, turns around and says, scrap it, guess what happens? They scrap it. So I chose whether some of the members liked it or not, they didn't. USA actually gave me quite a bit of a hard time about it. They bounced it back. In the end, it went silent, so I think the one group did take it. I believe Linda Thomas Greenfield has it. I know other nations took it for sure. It's there. They've all seen it. And I absolutely published on all their Twitter feeds, so there's no way to get out of not receiving it. But I wanted to make it legit, and I went through their governmental departments. Now, USA was the one that I don't know. You know, I think it's good, but I don't absolutely know for sure. But I think with what came forward after that letter and what Linda said the next day in her report, sounds like she did take it, and they're going to look at it. They'll look at international matters in human rights. So I think it's okay. Now, I did that first because we don't want to go to ICC and then have, after the fact, one UNSC member coming forward and rejecting it, then it throws it in the garbage, and we'll never know. The prosecution will say, we're not looking at this, and then you don't know why. Or get it halfway started, and then one of the members gets pissy about it and then shuts it down, because that's the reality. The thing with the International Criminal Court is that if you bring that forward, it can mandate your country. There's International Court of Justice. I could have went that way, but that's voluntary for Canadian politicians. Now, the Canadian system is very autocratic. This crown power bestowed upon our Prime Minister, Lieutenant Governor, Governor General above that, sitting against the Prime Minister, all Lieutenant Governors across the provinces. They could absolutely turn around. It's scrap thrown away. And then all of you would have believed, like First Nations, they would have believed, oh, it wasn't any good. Oh, nope, the world doesn't want it. Look, International Court of Justice doesn't want to hear it. No, your country, it's voluntary. So your country can say, oh, no, we don't want to participate. And they get to do that. They don't have to tell you that. So if you go to the International Criminal Court and you absolutely have a case and the UNSC's okay with it and the prosecutor's okay with it, I'm still like this because I'm not sure that prosecutor, unfortunately the old one was from Africa. Donald Trump put sanctions on her just before his end of office, right before. Worst thing ever. We had an African nation lawyer that would have done it. Former colonial, went independent, would have heard our plight here. Okay? And unfortunately, Donald Trump sanctioned her. Too much pressure. She's resigned. Not officially yet. She's on her last case. She's out in June. However, her office won't take any cases. So I have to go to the new prosecutor, which is Khan out of the UK. Now, UK may, and I say may, turn around, red flag it, maybe through Canada going to the UK saying, scrap this, please. They're a UNSC member. That may happen. We're going to try anyway. We're going to see what happens. And at least if that does happen, at least we can say, you guys, it was UK. UK said no. And then all of you will know. And, you know, at least there's a truth there. We're learning the real system. However, the way I'm rolling this letter out, what I've put in, I hope that UK won't. The letter that was sent to every UNSC member rolled out what we're doing, why we're doing it, why we're targeting this, and no, we're not going after UK on their freedom of movement, even though the Canadian politicians, they played in that sandbox. They took the Hong Kong residents, made them Canadian citizens. It did help the UK, but UK is a different nation. We're not going after UK's decisions on freedom of movement. We're going after Canada's because Canada chose to punish freedom of religion, which, when you read the charter, guess what, of the UN, freedom of religion is absolutely cemented in international law. Freedom of movement is not. So our Canadian politicians, now we're going to look at that about this letter, and I have all the evidence, exhibits to go along with the case, right? To make your case, you can't just make allegations. You have to have exhibits to prove your evidence. So I've collected this all year. And what the evidence is this, that Justin Trudeau, and specifically for the province of Alberta, Jason Kenney, they both adopted immigration programs to really target Alberta with a mass amount of all international new Canadian citizens and immigrants to Canada. And we got hit with COVID. All the countries shut down freedom of movement, not necessarily UK, not that that's the issue. It is when you look at who spread COVID, because Justin Trudeau and opposition leader Aaron O'Toole, which is his absolute legal responsibility to be the opposition, said not a word about the freedom of movement for the entire COVID pandemic. They brought in 200,000 new Canadian citizens. All Hong Kong applications got approved right away. They got to jump the queue ahead of everybody else in line because of what's going on in Hong Kong, and UK wanted to see that, and Canada followed suit. UK is a UNSC member, Canada is not. So Canada's politicians, and this is leader of Alberta, Jason Kenney, who put in his own requirement to have these 10,000 brought into Alberta, rurally, spread all over rural Alberta, as well as Justin Trudeau wanted his 30,000 for Alberta, okay? They brought in 200,000 for the entirety of Canada, but the majority went to Alberta per person per capita because we're 4 million. A province like Ontario, 15 million. It's not even comparable, everybody, okay? So we took the bulk of way above our percentage of our country, and that's just fact. So the issue is they went and arrested a pastor from my hometown, James Coates, who didn't do any traveling. He was being a pastor. They accused him of practicing religion during COVID and spreading COVID-19 because he wouldn't follow the health regulations imposed on all domestic Canadians, and for the province of Alberta and Albertans. They decided to make an example out of him in a small rural community and put him in jail. Several months he got. It was right on my birthday, February 16th, again out of my hometown that I grew up in. So they took him, they put him in jail for several months on freedom of religion because he's spreading COVID and he won't follow the restrictions. But the UN Charter, which is binding absolute international law, puts freedom of religion and two others absolutely, along with standard of living and some other issues. But freedom of movement's not bound in international law. It is in other agreements as you go through. It's listed in the Declaration of Human Rights, 1948. But bound to every country is absolutely freedom of religion, not freedom of movement, not universally across the whole world. So our politicians did all these flights in and out of Canada, along with the immigration. There's more to this. Along with the immigration and absolute evidence and what I just told you about Hong Kong, the queue jumping. This went on from last year, March, when all the other countries did mass lockdowns. Canada didn't do that. They continued to do freedom of movement, virtually unrestricted. There were 6.7 million international transits to and from Canada for the entire COVID pandemic. Highest numbers in the world by far, by absolutely the farthest, largest margins. So they did that. The politicians said, no, that's okay. As long as we're doing it, it's normal. It's not a human rights violation. There's nothing, no one's going to get COVID. However, COVID did get spread all over. And two, the variants came in. The UK variants came in. That came from Hong Kong, UK. You know what's going on here, right? So all these variants, they're running rampant now. Was it James Coates under freedom of religion and he had to go to jail? Or was it our politicians, Justin Trudeau, Aaron O'Toole, federally, in immigration, as well as Premier Jason Kenney and opposition leader Rachel Notley, who is a lawyer too, just like Aaron O'Toole. They said not a word about this. This was normal. They said that's normal. Imprison the pastor on freedom of religion. It's his fault COVID's spreading, but not us. Not in all those international transits, not from Hong Kong, the rest of it, queue jumping, mass immigration comparatively to the rest of the world, and mostly to Alberta. Okay? It's all logged, all screenshotted. I have the entire year from the government and the government website as they incorporate it. Now that they're in panic mode over this, now it's throw two doctors under the bus and, we're just going by Dr. Tam Fedgley and Alberta Hinshaw. That's the media. You can look it up right now, and they clearly blame those because it shows you that all the media companies are absolutely being paid, we know, by Justin Trudeau and the big payout for the news story. So the big media giants are all saying, no, print this story. Make sure it looks like that, because that's the story, likely the defense, the persons they're going to throw under the bus. But I have all the evidence. Justice Wagner, too, everybody watching, this is very important, too. Justice Wagner, who is now the Governor General of Canada, has been revamping the entire website on Governor General. It's beautiful. It's coming along very well. Everything I'm telling you now, you will find in relation to Governor General and how Canada operates is all being written out right now by none other than Justice Wagner and his team. So he may not be allowed to talk to me, but he can certainly publish the truth of Governor General as it is and change the narrative. I'm happy with that. Whatever little tiny successes we have are just so awesome. So, you know what? It does pay to get out there, and it does pay to do these things, and we see it happening now. You can go check it out. Brand new Governor General website, explanation of Governor General. I urge all of you to go through it, and you will see exactly what's what. It only gets better every day as they keep re-adding to it. But that's Justice Wagner, our Chief of Justice, as well as our sitting Governor General, rewriting it as it absolutely should be. I'm pretty happy about that, to say the least, you know. And I guess somebody got to him, whether that's some of his people in his academic community that I've had the fortune of being with, or was it the EU and that Supreme Justice in the EU that I talked to, that one forum, who took the time to give me 5 minutes. I don't know. Maybe I'll never know. But like I said, every little bit we get, just like this. It's not about being a hero or getting a hero cookie. It's about making your country and the world a better place. This will help to make everything better for Canadians. So kudos to Justice Wagner on that. So that, I hope, encompasses the Canada portion of the ICC. I know this video is long and I'm sorry. Now we're going to get into what a lot of Canadians, and I've had a lot of messages on it too, and I've been ignoring it, but it's time to hit that button too. So Germany and their ICC challenge. So I just told you all about the UNSC Binding 5. Key word here, Binding 5, allies from World War II. Canada was an ally from World War II. We were instrumental in designing the UN. We sat on the UNSC since 1946 all the way up to 2008 when the load limit was reached and Canada was thrown off the UNSC. We always, every decade, had a seat there, no problem. And as we took on too many breaches in international law as the years passed from 1952 and King George, they ended colonialism, Canada didn't change their constitution. We stayed stuck. The politicians, like I told you all, took that crown power, wiggled the crown and said, I'm now Her Majesty. Every single premier, conservative, liberal, who've always had power and changed back and forth, we're going to keep this all to ourselves. This is ours. We're going to abuse Canadians as much as we can, and we're going to fill our pockets, and we're going to have absolute authority. So they did that. And there's a major negative consequence to that. Is the fact that we never moved on with the rest of the world. So as the rest of the world started to understand binding international law, and there's a lot of bad nations out there, but they've always been bad. Many of them were part of the Axis power, or even worse, World War I powers, or even worse, have just been absolute radical anti-human rights countries, dictatorships, all of it since their inception. And they're hard to deal with, okay? And the world's trying to fight that. And Canada has been slowly embracing that. Non-binding, more non-binding, taking a step further back from the Allies every time. And in 2008, we took our final step backward under Stephen Harper, and it was CHOP. And the Allies, our traditional allies, had their load limit of Canada. Quick point here, the new Donald Trump website, you go into that to subscribe. Right at the bottom, everyone except Canadians under armed forces. Every armed forces from the Allies except Canada. Listed right on Donald Trump's brand new website. And what's that going to mean for his social media platform? I haven't seen if I can even tag him anymore or not. I'm going to have to try that out post-video. I'll have to remember that. But why I get into all this is, first with Germany. I know I got a little ramble there. Germany was an Axis power of World War II. I'm not running Germany down today. It's just a reality. Ally, Axis. If we join forces with Germany, you see what I'm saying here? With an Axis power, not that they are anymore, they're not. And the Charter gave them an opportunity, like every other Axis power, renounce it all. This is the binding new law of the world. You sign this and we'll allow you a membership, but they'll never get that UNSC. And I'm not slamming Germany. I just don't want to confuse issues or even look at all the other issues that are going on here. I believe we have a tremendously great case against our politicians. Do not muddy the water with other issues on vaccination, other all kinds of other freedoms. We're just doing two topics here. I'm looking absolutely at UNSC's binding law, world binding law, meaning every nation of the world is sworn and bound to this, including Canada. So that's all I'm doing here, saying, listen, this is absolute and binding law. This isn't. They utilized this way up here, took this one and pushed it into the dirt here. Major international law violation. That's what I believe. It's a case, I believe, if we're heard, if they accept it, they're going to do the investigation. If we give them all the exhibits, not an allegation, we put the allegation, but all the exhibits with it. One document saying, listen, I alleged all these things. Here is absolutely all the evidence in chronological order, just like a real legal case, so that any of those judges, should it be heard, look at it and go, geez, everything they've claimed is absolutely the truth. And already, Canada's trying to mount a defense. Oh, there were people from that church earlier last year who had COVID, and it's not the issue. The issue is, were you able to take this right and freedom, crush it in the dirt, take another one that the world said isn't bound, say, no, we're going to utilize that as much as you want, and crush this one that you said was binding on every country and not to be squished? Because it would have been different. What most of the other countries did, sure, they locked down religions. Sure, they locked down religions. Sure, they locked down all kinds of other stuff, but they locked down freedom of movement too. Canada didn't do that. They embraced that one for their needs, their political needs, and crushed the other one. That's why I think we're going to win this, and the international law is very, very clear. So that's the end of that. That's why I'm not utilizing Germany, because I don't believe their narrative is anywhere near us. And if they go on too many radical rants and we add ours to that in the pile, guess what happens? Ask any lawyer. You make a case, you stick to the basics of your case. Don't expand it to too much. Stick to the facts. Provide the evidence. Cut and dry. Make it simple. That's what we're doing here, Canadians. So if anyone asks you, say, take the time, watch the video. Oh, I gotta go, everybody. Looks like I have something to do with work here. Okay, bye now. Sorry, I'll continue part 2 of this. Bye now.